Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I interview business leaders who are committed to their own growth and the development of everyone on their team. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell. And today's episode is a very special one for me because it is number 250. And I couldn't think of anyone I'd rather have as a guest than my business partner of 32 years, Dr. Denny Coates. Welcome to my show, Denny.
I'm honored. 250. That's fabulous.
I know. And honestly, we've had so many great discussions. I want to share with my audience. Denny and I were introduced to each other in 1990, and we met for breakfast to get acquainted after being introduced by this mutual colleague. Well, 3 hours later, we were still talking. I, in particular, was very fascinated with his thinking. And we've been interested in each other's thinking as we have evolved as individuals and as a company over the past 3 decades. It's so hard to think that much time has flown by, Denny, but here we are, 32 years later. And I thought that today it would be really valuable for my listeners to have us share some of the insights and lessons we've learned over the years. And I thought it would be fun to start with the exact topic that got me fascinated with your brain and how it works in our very first meeting, because you had been studying the brain, how we learn, what impact it has on our behavior for many years before we had ever met. And that has carried over into everything that we have done in our work together since then. So talk a little bit about your fascination with the brain, but also its importance in learning and in the workplace.
Okay. Well, when you and I met, I had been retired from the U.S. Army for about 3 years. And it had always been my intention to focus on helping leaders get better at leadership. And one of the questions that really nagged at me was, well, if I'm going to help them learn this, how does learning happen? So, it just seems to me you should know how does learning work? And so that's why I started to really study the brain, because I know that's where it doesn't happen in your hands. Muscle memory is really brain memory, So I had to really get into it. And so for the first couple of years, I was reading maybe about 100 books a year on the brain, how it works, how learning happens, memory, the whole bit. And so along the way, I learned something very important to me about what I was hoping to teach to leaders. And that is that there are two kinds of things that they learn. One is knowledge. And so when they're with an instructor or an expert or something, it's very likely they're going to learn some knowledge. In other words, some facts, some insights, principles about leadership. All that can be helpful. And the way knowledge happens is you hear it, and then the brain puts it where it belongs. What is it related to? And so it becomes a part of a little network there about that topic. And so that helps you remember it. And so it becomes something you can access and use when you're doing your work, when you're leading and so forth. The other thing that they learn is skills. And skills are interesting because, and they're different from knowledge because it has to do with action. You do things, you take action in the world, you think, you say something. Those are actions. And so in a skill, the action has to be linked to everything else that you're learning, because that's what you're about to do. Now, action is important because that's how you impact on another person. You can kind of know things, but that doesn't impact the other person unless you do something with it. So I learned that the way these circuits form are quite interesting. And I'll try to make this real brief because I don't want to get into neurology or anything, but every brain cell has lots of little filaments on it. And these filaments are what goes off to other brain cells to connect. And when they connect, that's how those circuits are formed. And so two things about that. One is it takes time. And you stimulate those little dendrites, those little connector fibers, you stimulate them by doing what that brain cell does. So the more you do it, the more the filaments are stimulated to connect. And eventually they do. Now, the connection is important because in the flow of work, especially in the typical workplace, it's busy and stuff's happening real time. And so when things happen real time, you have to react. And when you react, you don't have time to think to yourself, wait a minute, what did I learn in class? What did he say? What should I do? And figure that out. You don't have time for that. What you need to do is react. And the only way you can react is if that circuit is already built. Otherwise, you do have to concentrate and figure it out because the circuit's not there. So it's all about building the circuits. And what's interesting about that is it takes time. Now, in class, you can learn some knowledge, some tips, some insights, whatever the instructor has for you, and you've got it because the brain associates it with different things. But so it just sits where it belongs. You don't have to build a circuit for it. So it's like learning any skill. And people who've learned how to swim or play golf or play a musical instrument or do a craft, they know that those are skills. You're taking action in the world, you're building things, you're doing things, and you, especially in sports, you have to react. You don't have time to think about it. If you think you have to think about it, you won't do it right. If you're watching the World Series right now, you know that those batters are not thinking. When that ball leaves the pitcher's hand, they have less than a second to do what they have to. You have to react. And so leaders have to react. So it's a process where you get your reps. And the more reps you get, the closer you get to building that circuit. And when that circuit is built, it's your skill. You've got it. And believe me, those ball players have got it. They've got skills, and they earned them because they practice them a lot. Everybody knows this. And it's true in leadership too. That's how it works. And that's kind of like the brain background of it all.
That's so, I still find it fascinating when we think about the fact that it is not enough to get exposed to good information. The key of practicing it so that you can build those circuits so they happen automatically. Talk a little bit about because companies invest millions or billions of dollars in learning and development over the years. And yet we know from studies that have been done, data that's been collected, that a lot of times it doesn't stick. And I would love for you to share, what is it that's missing and what could be done to make sure that the training that they've invested in actually has an impact back at work?
Well, as I said, years and years ago, I just made this commitment to leadership. The truth is, I've been in leadership all my life, ever since I was 13 years old. You know, Eagle Scout, West Point graduate, served in the military. I had all these opportunities to lead. Every single assignment I ever had, I was in a leadership position. Not only did I get that experience, but I was really fascinated with leadership. I read about it. So I was learning about it while I was doing it. So by the time I retired, I knew that's my expertise. That's what I want to focus on. That's the value that I want to bring if I help people. And so what we're talking about are people in positions of authority, the people who are head of a group, head of a team, and they want to influence that team to perform at the best, to be their best. Now, I came to understand that knowledge is very helpful, but the leaders, they have to have the skills. It's a doing, and the main skill is communication. That's it. That's how you lead. When you're with people, just think about it. How could you possibly influence someone, your direct report? How could you do that without communicating? You couldn't. And so it's an aspect of communication that you have to get really good at. I also, through working with you, with the organizations that we worked with, one of the things that I learned was that no one we ever came in contact was expert in all the various communication skills. They all needed to work on it. They all needed to learn better ways of listening, for example, or they needed to learn the better ways of giving positive feedback or negative feedback, resolving conflicts, all this. And by the way, I mentioned those skills because we have also learned that there are way too many skills for them to learn all at once. There are many, like leading a meeting, for example, giving a presentation, for example. Those are skills, leadership skills. But what we decided to do was to focus on the highest impact skills we could find. So given that you can't focus on all of them, can you focus on, say, half of them or a third of them that have 99% of the impact of leadership? And so that's what we did. We focused on 10 skills, and we wrote this book called Connect with Your Team.
I've got it right here.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, that's it. The top 10 communication skills. And that's why it's top 10, because you need to focus. Not only top 10, but what's the number one skill that you need to focus on right now while you're getting better? Because you could try, out of enthusiasm, you could try to work on 5 or 6 different skills because you thought they were important. But believe me, that won't work, because you got to get so many reps that if you're working on all those skills at once, it dilutes it. You'll find that you'll miss opportunities and it won't work. So if you really want to be successful at improving, you need to focus. And we recommend one skill. What is the one skill that's most important to you right now? And to focus. So everybody in the workplace needs to get better at communication. And you know what? not just leaders. Their direct reports need to get better because they communicate with each other and with the leader. And so that needs to improve too. So really, we're talking about leaders and their teams. Everyone needs to focus on improvement, and they can choose what they feel is the skill they want to focus on. And when you take that approach, you can really get some good results.
Thinking about that, even a skill like listening, there are so many sub-skills associated with it that you could choose one aspect of listening. So it's possible to narrow down even closer. And, Denny, I think it'd be interesting to share a personal one that you and Paula, our other business partner, and I have practiced over time, because it's something that almost all of us do, which is around interrupting. We all get so enthusiastic about what we want to say, and sometimes we're impatient because the other person is not speaking as fast as we want or getting to the point as quickly as we would like them to. And so this habit of interrupting is something that is developed, as well as learning how to do better at that. So what I think it'd be helpful, Denny and Paula and I have come up with some strategies to use with each other, because, especially at times when we are brainstorming creative ideas related to, growing our business, we will interrupt each other. And so we've learned simply to say, I wasn't done yet, or please let me finish. And that's a cue to the others to, oh, get quiet. And so there are ways that we can assist others in their goal to improve a skill without getting our egos wrapped up in it, getting upset with them for or taking it personally that they're interrupting, but simply to hold it up to them to help them improve in that area. Because ultimately, besides the focus, it's that practice in developing those strong circuits so the new one becomes stronger than the old way of doing things.
That's a good point. Yeah, I used to interrupt a lot, and I think the members of our team, they were bothered by it. I did it a lot, and so at some point they gave me feedback about it, and I thought to myself, do I really do that? And sure enough, so I made it a priority to try to control that and to stop interrupting. One of the things that I've learned about interrupting, it's fascinating, essentially it comes from a good place, from a good heart. You think about it. This is a person who's got something to say. This is a person who's been paying attention and wants to help. And so, yeah, here we are talking about that. Boom. They want to say what important thing that they got to say. Well, it's still relevant. So they say it, and it ends up interrupting somebody. So it's really a good thing, but it's a bad thing because people need to say what they want to say while they're saying not get interrupted. So, yeah, we worked that out. I like that. I'm not done yet. That works for me. And you're right. Listening has lots of sub skills. For example, empathy is a part of listening, and knowing when to listen is a part of listening, because you could be in an interaction and it's time to listen and you're not. Maybe you would rather say something, or maybe you multitask or something and you're not focused on the other person. So knowing when to listen is a key part of it. It's one of, in fact, we've decided that if you're going to prioritize one skill, maybe you should start with listening. We think you can't go wrong, because it's so powerful. When you listen, people get the notion he's interested. He wants to know what I have to say. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to stick around and say other things that are important. And so he respects me and understands me because he listens to me. And we have this relationship because he listens to me. So it's really, really strong. And furthermore, out of these 10 skills, at least 8 of them have listening as one of the parts of the skill.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great place to start.
Yeah, unfortunately, from having heard from many of my other guests who work in organizations, people often think they're listening when they're really just waiting for their turn to talk. And, you know, all of, and one of the people that has influenced both of us is Marshall Goldsmith, his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And this idea of constantly letting people know I'm working on this, how, and then informally asking, how am I doing? Those are all ways that help us to wire the brain for that skill because we're giving our focus, our attention, our time to really working on that. And the payoffs are huge. But you know, Denny, one of the other things that we also know is a reality is that it's hard to change these communication skills because we don't come to work as a blank slate. We've got these established habits, our way of giving feedback or not, of listening well or not. And so it isn't easy to do it by yourself. And so talk about what else can help with the process of making changes and acquiring a new skill.
Well, you know, Meredith, you really hit on a good point there, that it's not easy. And one of the reasons it's not easy is you already know how to listen. It's just that it's dysfunctional. It causes problems that way you listen. So you have to fight against that habit while learning something different. It's not like learning something, let's say you're learning a musical instrument, and so your coach says, try this. Well, you've never tried it before. That's something new. You don't have to unlearn anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's easier. But these communication skills, we already know how to do all of them. You know, when we're in conflict, yeah, we know how to deal with that already. We just argue. You know, that's what you do. That's what we learned to do on the street when we were kids. And so it just kind of flows into adult life, and that's what you do. So we have to overcome that. Now, because it's hard, it means that sometimes when you're learning a better way, you'll forget to do it. And the old skill will kick in, the old pattern. Well, that's tough, you know, because you come away from that experience thinking, oh man, I blew it, you know. And so you get discouraged. Or you might try to do what you know to do, and it's a little rough and it doesn't work out very well. And so you need to do that better. But there you are, coming up short again. So these experiences with frustration while you're trying to do it better, to build the skill, these can be daunting, and for a lot of people, they'll give up. And the problem with giving up is, well, you're done. You're not going to become a better listener because you're not working on it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to learn how to resolve conflicts effectively because you're not trying anymore, and so forth. So that's unfortunate. But there are these casualties, you see, when people know what to do and are trying to build the skill, and they get this feeling it's not working out. I'm going to just go, I know how to listen. I know how, forget it. And so it's done. And that's really too bad. Well, what we've learned is you need help. Everybody needs help. I mean, for heaven's sake, even the top executives need help. That's why there are these professional executive coaches that many organizations pay big bucks to hire to work with the top level of executives. It's an old tradition to do that, and it pays off. Everybody needs help. But you know what? It doesn't make sense to improve the leadership of the C-level and ignore everybody at the mid-level and below. That doesn't make sense at all. Everybody needs help. All the team members need help. The supervisors need help. Managers need help. But as far as I can tell, there aren't any organizations that can afford professional coaches for everybody. That'd be a good way to go broke. So the solution is elegant, actually. The solution is what's come to be known as peer coaching. And the reason that works, what I'm talking about is, well, we'll coach each other. Supervisors will coach each other, and so forth. Team members, the people on the team will coach each other. You think to yourself, well, if we're paying $100,000 for the CEO to get coaching, how can this team member coach someone else who's never been trained? And the answer is, it's easy. All they have to do is hold them accountable, meet once a week, every other week, whatever, and say, hey, Chuck, you said you were going to do this and this. Did you? How did that go? That's accountability. Okay. Mm-hmm. And also listen to what they say when you ask that question. Use the listening skill to do that. And then when you find out how it's going, help them learn from what happened. And that's easy. You just have to say, well, what happened? Why do you think that happened? What did you learn from it? Doesn't take 6 months of training to do that. Anybody can do that. And the key is, do you care enough to do that? So if you care about this other person, you can be a peer coach. And so you just encourage them to go back to the basics. That's what a good coach does. That's what a golf coach does. That's what a batting coach does. That's what a musical coach does. Always go back to the basics. And the basics, brothers and sisters, is right here. Okay?
Connect with your team. Back. What Denny was holding up.
Yeah. Go back to should you listen? How should you give feedback and so forth, and review that. And it only takes a few minutes to go back to that part of the chapter and say, oh yeah, okay, I didn't do that. I should do that. And we even have these micro learning videos now that treat the same topics. Mm-hmm. And so go watch one of these videos about that and go back to the base. And so you can encourage a person to do that. Well, that doesn't take a lot of training. Just to encourage and let them know that they're okay. That if they keep after it, it will happen for them.
We also have our other book, Peer Coaching Made Simple, that is just a very brief but practical, useful guide on applying the skills you just talked about and giving some sample dialogues to let people know, what does it look like if I'm doing this well? And the whole idea, as you said, is that it's not complicated. It doesn't need to be intimidating to someone to imagine themselves in this role. Because, when you think about it, Denny, this is the kind of thing we do anyway for someone who's a good friend or a close family member. When we see them struggling, we're using some of these exact same skills as we outline here for being a peer coach to someone else. it's investing the time to care about them. And like you say, it's that balance of support and accountability. And I know you and I have done this for each other at different times when we've had a specific goal that we wanted to work on, and we needed our feet held to the fire to make sure we got certain things done. The underlying element of that, though, really is a caring about that person, not holding a whip over them. Did you do this? I think that's an important aspect of this whole accountability piece. It's in the context of support.
Yep. And so these meetings don't have to take very long, like 15 minutes. Have a little conversation, and at the end of it, hey, Chuck, what are you going to do next week? And so they make a commitment, and you make a note, and that's all there is to it. And then next week you meet again. You meet on Zoom, meet on a phone, meet in person. Doesn't matter how you do it. So, yeah, moms have been coaching each other for decades, centuries. You know, school teachers the same. They help each other. It's called peer coaching, and now we see the organizations seeing the value of this and wanting to get their people involved in this peer coaching activity, because it's powerful, and it will result in better communication all over.
And you know, Denny, I've made a number of presentations around peer coaching to different organizations, and one of the things, you know, they ask about is how to get started with something like this. Well, of course, we have our tools that we've created. I also recommend they look for the people that always have their hands raised saying, pick me for opportunities to grow and learn, because they will become the advocates for others to get involved with this same process. They want to be of help to others as well as getting helped by themselves. And in fact, this program that we've created called Power Partners builds all of that in with our books, with the videos. And it's a powerful process that can happen over time, where the end result is a culture where people feel comfortable coaching each other. What would you say are some of the things that need to be in place in an organization for a process like this to be effective?
Well, first of all, recognizing that it's important to help the managers and supervisors at all levels, which is I don't think that most organizations do this. And also to recognize that it's an effort that happens over time. It doesn't happen in the classroom. There's no time in the classroom to get all those reps. Can't do it. It has to be on the job. So the work is on the job. They do it while they're working, while you're leading, and getting better and sticking with it, because you're not going to be 100% perfect right out. As soon as you learn about it and you start to work on it, you know, you'll have these shortfalls occasionally, and you might get discouraged, but you want to stick with it. So you need a coach, someone who will keep you encouraged. See? And so with that, yeah, like you say, we have facilitator guides and books and videos that can help people while they're learning to be better communicators. So making these available and getting it started. A lot of times an organization will want to do it with a couple of groups first before implementing it all over the place. And so that's a good idea. See how it works, and then you learn from that, and then you can roll it out to other levels. And the possibilities are wonderful. Just think about it. What if every supervisor in your organization got better because they had the coaching to do it. I mean, that's an amazing thing to think about. And another thing is, we're not hiring high-paid professional coaches for all these people. They're coaching each other. They're not even going to class. This is just doing their work better. So this is fantastic opportunity. And so I think the first step is to learn about it, to learn what is peer coaching? What are these high impact communication skills? And what can we do to get started?
That's great. And I would like to just encourage my listeners to visit our website, growstrongleaders.com, where we have information about both our 360 feedback, which is the assessment part of the process, finding out what skills are strong for you, which ones you might need to work on. So GSL 360 is an excellent tool for that part. And the development part, the GSL Power Partners, incorporates our 2 books. And as you mentioned earlier, Denny, the videos in this whole peer coaching process. So we have all those resources available. Is there anything else, Denny, you wanted to share with my listeners before we wrap up?
Well, this is the 250th podcast, and I would just like to say that your podcast rocks. It's wonderful, man. I haven't watched all the episodes, but I've watched most of them. And the insights just come hard and fast from these people out there. So, hey, watch Meredith Bell's Grow Strong Leaders podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that plug. And I want to just acknowledge and thank you for being such an amazing business partner over all these years. I've learned so much from you. We've learned a lot from each other. And I'm just so proud of the journey we've taken together and the impact we've been able to have because of our commitment to help people become better communicators in the workplace.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thanks for tuning into my podcast. Now head over to growstrongleaders.com and check out our 2 books, Connect with Your Team and Peer Coaching Made Simple. While you're there, download the free facilitator guide to find out how to implement our unique peer coaching system. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.